Buzzing with Miss B.
Hello, this is Chrissy Beltran with Buzzing with Miss B, and I am here today to share a revision strategy with you that you can use with upper elementary students to help them add a lot more development to their writing. This is from my Narrative Writing Intervention Strategy Toolkit that includes the Teacher's Guide to Writing Intervention and the Narrative Writing Intervention Strategy Ring, 72 lessons that you can use at any point in the writing process to help your writers grow. The lesson we're looking at today is number 46, Revising to Add Development, Find a Place. And it comes with this handy Find a Place guide for revision. So I have a very basic draft that I have written about my Aunt Judy and I jumping off the high dive whenever I was young. I'm going to read it with you, and then we're going to use our Find a Place guide to add some interesting revision development to this piece. Aunt Judy and I started up the ladder to the high dive. We finally got to the top. I took a deep breath as Aunt Judy held my hand, and we jumped. We splashed into the water. It's a basic piece that sort of summarizes the events of that day, but it doesn't include any of the feelings or the thoughts or anything that happened aside from what you could see looking at the scene. So in the Find a Place guide that's included in this resource, it says, details help the reader visualize our story and imagine the feeling we want them to feel. Help the reader envision your story. Reread your piece and find a place in your writing to add the following details. Find a place to add a description of the setting. So I could add a description of the setting to this piece, and I'm thinking it would be logical to add it towards the beginning because I never stated where I was or anything like that. So up here, I'm going to add a description of the setting to help my reader envision where I am. I'm going to say, the pool was packed full of screaming, laughing kids. I could add more description here about them playing Marco Polo and about them kicking and splashing, but I'm just going to leave it at that for now. A description of a character. Well, I never really introduced who my Aunt Judy is. She used to be a swimmer, which makes total sense that she would help me learn how to go off a high dive. I could also introduce myself, and I suppose I could introduce one of the kids in the pool, but I don't think that would be very meaningful to my reader because they're not important. The individuals in the pool are not important to this piece. So I'm going to introduce my Aunt Judy. See, I have Aunt Judy and I started up the ladder to the high dive. I'm going to introduce her before I say that. The pool was packed full of screaming, laughing kids. My Aunt Judy was a tall, lanky swimmer who was always up for fun, because she did always want to do something fun. And this was a fun thing we were doing this day. Now find a place to add a transition or a transitional phrase. I'm going to look through my ideas and see if there's anywhere that it's kind of choppy. The pool was packed full of screaming, laughing kids. My Aunt Judy was a tall, lanky swimmer who was always up for fun. Even here, I think, is very choppy. I introduced who she was, but what does that have to do with anything? I think I know what I'm going to do. My Aunt Judy, a tall, lanky swimmer who was always up for fun, and I started up the ladder. I think that makes more sense, to the high dive. We finally got to the top. I took a deep breath as Aunt Judy held my hand, and we jumped. We splashed into the water. I could transition here. And we jumped, we splashed into the water. After falling for what seemed like hours. I mean, it was a high dive. We splashed into the water. Find a place to add a line or dialogue or two. We finally got to the top. I took a deep breath. I think here we could say something like, "Are you ready?" My Aunt Judy asked. "Are you ready?" I nodded. The tiniest of nods, because I was really scared. See, I didn't really introduce that before, that I was scared to go off a high dive. I want to make sure that people know that. Find a place to add a feeling. Here we go. Now I can introduce that I was scared. The pool was packed full of screaming, laughing kids. Aunt Judy, a tall, lanky swimmer who was always up for fun, and I started up the ladder to the high dive. I think I want to add a feeling here. My heart was pounding as I climbed up, up, up. Find a place to add a thought. I think I probably could add a thought here to really round out this sensation that I'm having. My heart was pounding as I climbed up, up, up. Would we ever get to the top? I wondered. Find a place to add a sound word and explain what is making that sound. Well, I could scream, because I may have. We splashed into the water, maybe with a loud, wet plop. Okay, so I'm going to reread and see if there's any other final revisions I'd like to make. The pool was packed full of screaming, laughing kids. Aunt Judy, a tall, lanky I'm going to say my Aunt Judy, a tall, lanky swimmer who was always up for fun, and I strided up the ladder to the high dive. My heart was pounding as I climbed up, up, up. Would we ever get to the top, I wondered? We finally got to the top. I don't like how redundant that sounds. We finally made it to the pinnacle. My Aunt Judy asked, "Are you ready?" I nodded the tiniest of nods. I took a deep breath as Aunt Judy held my hand and we jumped. After falling for what seemed like hours, we splashed into the water with a loud, wet plop. Find a place to take out an irrelevant or uninteresting detail. Well, this was not really irrelevant or uninteresting, but it was repetitious, so I did change that out. Find a place to replace a boring word with a specific word. I did replace top with pinnacle, but I wonder if there's another place that I could replace something. How about we splashed into the smooth surface of the pool with a loud wet plop. I like that. So now if I reread this whole thing, there's definitely an improvement, and I'm expressing more of the feelings and emotions around the event, and I've added several details that will help my reader really envision what this story is all about. So if you use that with your students, you may see a real improvement in their ability to revise to include specific kinds of details. So totally recommend revising to find a place. And that again is part of the Narrative Writing Intervention Toolkit on TPT. 72 writing intervention lessons on a ring, plus the Teacher's Guide to Writing Intervention that will help you intervene at every step along the writing process. You can grab it at TPT, at my Teachers Pay Teachers store, Chrissy Beltran, Buzzing with Miss B. And you can follow me at really any social media at Buzzing with Miss B. Happy teaching.